The series The Rings of Power offers one vision of the Three Rings' birth, yet Tolkien's own writings tell another, more perilous tale. The tale most known speaks of the Three Rings as the purest of all the Rings of Power, wrought by elven hands alone, untouched by Sauron, and born from a desire to preserve all that was fair in Middle-earth. They are remembered as symbols of wisdom and healing. Narya the Red, kindling courage; Nenya the White, guarding peace; and Vilya the Blue, shielding realms of beauty against the encroaching dark. In the Rings of Power series, this belief is given vivid form. We see Celebrimbor guided, even uplifted by a mysterious ally, and the three forged in urgent hope as a final safeguard against rising shadow. To many who first learned the tale through the show, the three appear as a sudden answer, a triumph wrested from the brink of ruin. Yet this is but the surface of a far deeper story. For Tolkien's own writings reveal another truth, one more complex, more perilous, and far older in its weaving than a single moment of revelation. The three were not forged in haste, nor born from desperation, but from a long and hidden struggle of craft, pride, and resistance. They were shaped not in isolation from Sauron, but through knowledge he had freely given. Knowledge the elves believed they could master without paying its price. Though the three were never touched by the Dark Lord's hand, they were bound by the very art he taught, and thus their beauty carried a shadow, a cost unseen, that would shape the fates of the Second and Third Ages alike. So a question arises, one that unsettles the simple tale. Were the Three Rings truly a salvation forged by the elves, or were they the most subtle thread in Sauron's design? The answer leads us back to the beginning, to a time when the elves sought not power, but to heal the world they loved. The tale begins long before the Three Rings ever shone beneath starlight, before mithril was drawn into moonlit thread, before gemstones were set to catch the breath of the world. There was a longing in the hearts of the elves. Though the Second Age opened in peace, a quiet sorrow lay upon the days of Middle-earth. The elves had seen the bliss of the West and the ruin of Beleriand, and felt time slowly wearing away the beauty they loved. They cherished these lands, its forests, its rivers under stars, its mortal realms blossoming like spring. Yet they sensed that all fair things here would fade, and fade swiftly. It was in Eregion, beneath the shadow of the misty mountains, that a bold dream took root. The Noldor under Celebrimbor, last of the House of Feanor, sought to craft wonders that could heal what was marred. They sought no thrones and no dominion, only the preservation of beauty and memory through their art. Celebrimbor was unlike his forefathers. If Feanor's fire had burned with pride and wrath, Celebrimbor's flame was steadier, as a lamp lit against the coming night. Yet he bore the same inheritance, the yearning to shape the world, to guard what he loved from the shadow of decay. Into this yearning stepped a stranger, a figure fair and wise in counsel, calling himself Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. He spoke of hidden arts, of powers yet untapped, of healing Middle-earth without sailing into the West. Why should the world pass and grow dim, he asked. Why must all things of beauty perish? To the smiths of Eregion, his words were like dew upon dry grass. He promised preservation, not rule, healing, not power, and the elven smiths, skilled in craft, but unwise in peril, welcomed him. Yet not all found comfort in his teachings. In Lindon, Gil-galad grew uneasy. In the guarded woods of Lorinand, Galadriel felt a chill in the stirring of the leaves, and among those who watched the night skies, whispers arose that a power long scattered was being gathered anew. Still, even the wise did not foresee what would follow from the meeting of elven craft and Maya cunning. For the Rings of Power were not born as weapons of war, but as remedies for a sorrow too deep to name. Once the elves set foot upon this path to bind beauty against the slow tide of time, there was no turning back. To understand the making of the three, one must look first to the greater work that came before them. For the three were not the beginning of the Rings of Power, they were the last and most guarded fruit of that craft. Guided by Anatar, the elven smiths of Eregion achieved wonders unseen since the First Age. Together they wrought the 7 for the Dwarf Lords and the 9 for the Kings of Men. Each set was shaped with purpose, to inspire prosperity among the dwarves and to strengthen the hearts of men against the weariness of the world. And though these rings were made with noble intent, their making drew the elves ever deeper into Anatar's teaching. Tolkien tells that Anatar was patient, subtle, and generous. He did not command. He instructed. He did not demand. He guided. Through long toil and craft, he wove his counsel into the very art of ring-making, and the elves believed they were mastering a shared wisdom, not opening a door through which peril would enter. But there were those who refused his gifts. In Lindon, Gil-galad and Elrond would not welcome Anatar, sensing danger in his fair form. In the south, Galadriel's heart stirred with warning, and she counseled Celebrimbor to resist the stranger's influence. Yet Eregion was proud of its friendship with this new teacher. They dismissed such warnings as needless fear, believing that they could wield this law without falling to corruption. So the rings of power were wrought not in secret, but in open collaboration between the Noldor and Anatar, who was in truth Sauron, the Dark Lord of Middle-earth. And once the 7 and the 9 were complete, Sauron departed Eregion, returning to Mordor, where he forged the One Ring in secret. When he set the One Ring upon his hand, he sought to bind all others to his will. At that moment, the elves perceived his treachery. They heard his voice within their minds and felt his will reaching for their thoughts. In terror, they removed their rings. The elves had been betrayed, and the beautiful work they had crafted became a snare. Yet here lies the first great divergence between Tolkien's legacy and modern retellings. The Three Rings did not exist at that moment. They were not part of Sauron's direct collaboration. Celebrimbor, perceiving the danger, forged the three after Sauron's departure alone, and in secret using the knowledge he had gained, but purifying the work from his influence. And in Tolkien's text, this distinction is profound. The three were made not as a response to Sauron's rising power, but as a final attempt to preserve beauty unsullied. They were crafted with a different intent, set apart from the 7 and the 9. Here the tale turns, for though the three were untouched by the Dark Lord's hand, their power was still bound to the One. If the One endured, the three would remain potent, yet in using them, the elves would reveal themselves to Sauron, and their works would be laid bare. Thus, the elves chose silence and secrecy. The three were hidden, their bearers unnamed, their power unused. For to wield them openly while the One existed would be to open the gates of their realm to the shadow, and in that silence lies the seed of all that would follow. The forging of the three should have been a triumph, a final act of elven craft unmarred by Sauron's deceit. Celebrimbor poured into them all that was pure in his heart, a love of Middle-earth, a longing to heal rather than to rule, and a resolve to preserve what time would steal. Yet even in their making, there lay a quiet sorrow. For the elves knew, now, that Middle-earth could not be saved by craft alone. The shadow had returned, and it had learned from the mistakes of old. Sauron no longer sought to conquer by brute force alone. He had turned to deceit, to whispers, to promises that played upon the deepest hopes of the free peoples. When Sauron discovered that the elves had perceived his treachery and removed their rings, his wrath was swift. He gathered his hosts and marched upon Eregion. The land that had been a beacon of craft and fellowship was cast into fire and ruin. Celebrimbor was taken, tortured for the location of the three, and though he revealed the 7 and the 9, he never betrayed the three. His defiance cost him his life, and with his fall, the dream of Eregion was shattered. For a time, the three remained hidden. One was entrusted to Gil-galad, another to Galadriel, and one to Círdan, who would later pass it to Mithrandir. Yet the elves dared not wield them while the One endured. They became rings of waiting, silent, veiled, and guarded through long years of fear and watchfulness. Here is where Tolkien's later writings cast a sharper light. In early tellings, the three seem wholly separate from Sauron, pure instruments of preservation alone. But in later notes, Tolkien reveals a more bittersweet truth, that the three carried within them the same perilous desire that led the Noldor to exile, the yearning to hold on to bliss, to halt the passing of beauty, to preserve what the world was meant to let go. This was the shadow woven into their grace, not domination but clinging, not corruption but refusal to accept the world's changing tide. It is here that the meaning deepens. The rings did not merely protect the elven realms, they paused their decay. Rivendell and Lorien became reflections of a memory, fragments of the elder days, lingering into the mortal years, sanctuaries of a fading world kept unnaturally bright. And so, a stillness fell, a stillness like the hush before rain, or the breath between heartbeats, where beauty stands untouched and time holds its breath. If such hidden truths and long-guarded tales speak to your heart, walk with us further, and let the path unfold, for the story now turns toward a revelation few ever learn. For soon, the three would awaken, and when they did, they would shape the fate of Middle-earth in ways even their makers could not foresee. When the One Ring was lost, sinking with Isildur beneath the waters of Anduin, a long silence settled over the three. For though Sauron was diminished, he was not destroyed. Still the elves waited, holding back the power of their rings, fearing that to awaken them too soon would reveal their hidden realms to the eye that had not yet opened. Only in the Third Age, when darkness crept once more through Greenwood, when whispers of a nameless fear stirred in the east, and when hope seemed a thinning thread, did the Keepers of the Three begin to wield them openly. And with that choice, the world changed. Under Elrond, Rivendell became a refuge of wisdom, a haven for lore, healing, and counsel, where the weary could lay down their burdens and gather strength. Under Galadriel, Lorien became a land untouched by time, golden, beneath leaves that did not fade, a memory of the elder days preserved against the world's decline. And under Gandalf, Narya kindled hearts to courage, hope, and resistance, inspiring others to stand against the shadow. These were not realms of conquest, nor tools of domination. They were sanctuaries, last strongholds of light in a world where the night was rising. Yet here lies the hidden truth Tolkien revealed in his later writings. The very act of using the three was both a blessing and a wound. For with every year the three held back decay, the elves bound themselves tighter to Middle-earth, to a world they were meant to leave. Their havens were beautiful, yes, but they were also echoes, holding onto a light that no longer belonged to this world. The rings preserved, but they could not restore. They paused time, but could not heal the long defeat the elves had fought since their awakening beside the waters of Cuiviénen. Thus, their triumph carried a hidden cost. The more they sheltered beauty, the more sorrow grew in their hearts. For they upheld a reflection of the West, while knowing the true West lay beyond their reach. And this is where the contrast with modern retellings becomes clearest. Some portray the three as a bold victory snatched from ruin, a solution born from mortal peril, but Tolkien's own vision is subtler, more bittersweet. The three were not a cure, but a grace granted for a time, allowing Middle-earth to breathe a little longer before the final dusk. When the One Ring was destroyed, the power of the three faded. Their realms, Rivendell, Lorien, and all the hidden beauty they sustained, began, at last, to wane. The elves, who had held back the tide of time for so long, finally felt it wash upon their shores. With the end of the rings came the end of the Elven Age. The three had guarded Middle-earth's last glimmer of ancient light. But all light kept too long becomes a memory, and must, at last, be let go. When the power of the three departed, a great stillness followed. The realms they had guarded, Rivendell's quiet wisdom, Lorien's golden dream, did not fall into ruin, but they passed into history. Their beauty became a memory entrusted to song and to the hearts of those who had walked beneath their light. For the three had not been forged to rule, nor to conquer, nor to match the One in might. They had been made to preserve, to hold back the fading of the world, and grant Middle-earth a little more time to heal, to hope, and to remember what was fair. And in that, they succeeded. Yet the elves paid a price. By wielding the three, they bound themselves more deeply to Middle-earth, even as their time within it waned. Their love for the land they had tried to protect became a longing that no craft could ease. And when at last their rings failed, the elves could no longer delay the choice they had sought so long to escape, to remain and fade, or to sail and surrender Middle-earth to the rising age of men. Some retellings speak of the three as symbols of triumph, clever works of resistance against a cunning foe. But in Tolkien's legacy, the truth is gentler and more sorrowful. The three were a mercy, not a victory, a light set to ease the twilight, not to chase back the night. They preserved what was beloved, yet they also reminded the elves that nothing made in Arda could remain untouched by time. Still, the three left behind a gift. Though their power faded, the hope they nurtured did not. The courage kindled by Narya burned on in mortal hearts. The wisdom guarded by Vilya shaped the age that followed, and the memory of Nenya's golden wood remained a vision of what grace, untainted, once looked like beneath the stars. Thus, the legacy of the three did not end with their unmaking. Their light became seed light passed into the world they had cherished, so that even after the last ship sailed, Middle-earth would still bear echoes of the elder days. And in this, perhaps, lies their truest purpose, not to preserve a fading past, but to prepare the world for the dawn that would come after the elves were gone. Two visions of the three now stand before us. One tells of brilliant jewels forged in sudden need, a defiant answer to the shadow. The other, Tolkien's own, speaks of a long and perilous labor, born from love and sorrow, shaped by wisdom learned through grief. In one telling, the three are a triumph seized. In the other, they are a grace borrowed. Neither is a tale of failure, yet the difference between them is the difference between victory and mercy, between power won and beauty preserved for a little while longer. Tolkien's writings remind us of a truth woven through all his legendarium, that even the greatest works of the wise are but brief lights against the long shadow of time, and that the most precious of gifts are often those that cannot last. If you cherish uncovering Tolkien's hidden histories and the deeper meanings behind his tales, consider joining us for more journeys through the lore.